Let's talk about real money, the kind that disappears in the final 20 minutes of a car deal after you have spent 3 hours picking a color, test driving the trim level, and shaking hands with the salesperson. The final paperwork lands in front of you, the manager smiles, and there it is, a column of fees that were never mentioned during the negotiation. $2,000, sometimes more, in line items with cryptic names and vague justifications. Most buyers sign anyway because they are exhausted, because they want the car, because they do not know which of those fees are mandatory and which are simply added to see who notices. Here is the truth, and I want to be careful with my language so you have an accurate picture. In most jurisdictions across the United States, several of these fees are discretionary or negotiable, meaning the dealer added them and the dealer can remove them. You push back politely and firmly. This is general consumer information, not legal advice, and the specific rules vary by state, so please check your state attorney general's office or consumer protection guidance for what applies where you live. As of recent Federal Trade Commission consumer protection moves, including the CARS rule that has been part of the broader auto retail conversation, there is more scrutiny than ever on add-ons and undisclosed fees, and that scrutiny may be working in your favor. There are 9 fees in particular I want to walk through, because these are the ones that show up most often and the ones where a thoughtful beer may be able to push back successfully. So before you sign anything, take a breath, slow down the room, and let me walk you through what each of those line items may really be. The first one is the dealer prep fee, sometimes labeled as PDI, which stands for pre-delivery inspection. The story behind this fee is that the dealer is charging you for the labor of removing the plastic from the seats, washing the car, filling the gas tank, and performing a brief inspection before handover. Here is the part most people never learn. The manufacturer already pays the dealer for pre-delivery inspection as part of the wholesale arrangement. That work is built into the cost of doing business. When this fee appears on your contract for several $100s, you are often paying for work that has already been compensated by the automaker. In most cases, this fee is added by the dealer, not the manufacturer, and where state law does not mandate it, it is negotiable. Ask politely whether the dealer prep fee can be removed or absorbed into the sale price. Many dealers, when pressed by an informed buyer, will quietly take it off rather than lose the deal. The second fee is the documentation fee, sometimes called the doc fee, and this is where things get interesting because the rules genuinely vary by region. The doc fee is supposed to cover the dealer's cost of preparing the paperwork for the sale, the title transfer, the registration paperwork, and similar administrative work. Some states cap the doc fee at a specific dollar amount, sometimes as low as $50 or $75. Other states allow the dealer to charge whatever they want, and in those states, doc fees may climb into the 4-figure range. Where a cap exists, the dealer cannot exceed it. Where a cap does not exist, the fee is largely discretionary, and you may negotiate it down. Ask the finance manager what the actual cost of the paperwork is, listen to the answer, and then ask if the fee can be reduced. The answer may surprise you, especially toward the end of a sales month when the dealer is chasing volume targets. Now, I want to stop here because the fourth fee on my list is the one I want you to really focus on, and you will see why in a moment. The third fee, briefly, is the market adjustment or addendum, sometimes called dealer markup. This is a fee added on top of the manufacturer's suggested retail price, often during periods of high demand or low inventory, and it can range from a few $100s to several thousand. It is presented as a take-it-or-leave-it premium. In most cases, this fee is added by the dealer, not the manufacturer, and it is entirely negotiable. If a vehicle is in short supply, the dealer may hold firm on the markup. If inventory is normal or the vehicle has been sitting on the lot, the markup may evaporate the moment you mention walking away. The market adjustment is one of the clearest examples of a discretionary fee, and shopping multiple dealers may reveal that the same vehicle is available without the markup just 30 miles down the road. Now we arrive at item 4, And I want you to slow down and pay attention to this one carefully, because it is the fee most likely to appear on a contract and the one most easily declined: nitrogen tire inflation. Some dealers charge a fee, sometimes between $50 and $200, for filling the tires with nitrogen instead of regular compressed air. The pitch is that nitrogen leaks more slowly, maintains pressure better with temperature changes, and improves fuel economy. The honest truth, supported by general consumer testing, is that the practical benefits for everyday driving may be marginal at best. The air you breathe is already roughly 78% nitrogen. The difference between pure nitrogen and atmospheric air in normal passenger vehicle use is small enough that most drivers would never notice it. This fee is added by the dealer as a profit item, and it is among the easiest to refuse. Politely ask for it to be removed. Most dealers will comply without argument because they know the underlying value proposition is weak. By the way, since I told you this fourth item is the one I most want you to remember, take a moment to circle back to it later, because nitrogen tire fees are one of the most common silent additions to dealer contracts and one of the simplest to push off your final bill. The fifth fee covers a cluster of similar add-ons that often appear together. Pinstripes, paint protection etch, and VIN etching are services the dealer may add to the vehicle without consulting you, sometimes before the car even reaches the lot. The fees can total several $100s combined. VIN etching, which is supposed to deter theft by making the vehicle's identification number visible on the windows, can usually be done at home for under $20 with a kit purchased online, if you want it at all. Pinstripes are a cosmetic decision that some buyers like and others do not. Paint etch services often carry significant markups over what an aftermarket installer would charge for the same work. In most cases, these add-ons are added by the dealer, not the manufacturer, and the fees are negotiable. If they have already been physically applied to the car, the dealer may resist removing the charges. If they have not yet been applied, you may decline them outright. Either way, the answer starts with asking. The sixth fee is the tinted windows pre-add. Some dealers apply window tint to vehicles on the lot and then add a fee for it on the contract, sometimes a few $100s, sometimes more depending on the package. Window tint is a legitimate product, and many drivers want it. The question is whether the dealer's price is competitive with what an independent tint shop would charge. In many cases, aftermarket tinting from a reputable installer may cost half of what the dealer charges, with similar or better quality film. If the tint has already been applied, you may be stuck with it as a condition of the sale, but you can still negotiate the fee downward. If you do not want tint at all, ask whether a non-tinted vehicle is available, possibly at a different location of the same dealer group. The seventh fee is the paint protection package, sometimes branded with proprietary names that sound impressive. This may include a ceramic coating, a sealant, a fabric protectant for the interior, and similar treatments. The pitch is long-term protection of the vehicle's finish and interior. The reality is that the cost of these packages at the dealer level may be several hundred to over $1,000, while the actual product applied may take an hour of labor and a small amount of material. Aftermarket detailers often offer comparable or superior ceramic coating services at a fraction of the dealer price, and a basic wax and sealant routine performed by the owner provides meaningful protection at essentially no cost beyond materials. This fee is added by the dealer, is generally negotiable, and may be declined entirely if the work has not yet been performed. The eighth fee involves tracking devices, sometimes branded as LoJack or similar names. The pitch is that a hidden tracker will help recover the vehicle it is stolen. There may be real value in some tracking products, particularly for high-theft vehicles or in high-theft areas. The questions to ask are whether the device is actually installed and functional, what the subscription cost looks like over time, and whether the dealer-installed system is the best option for your situation. Aftermarket tracking devices, including some that work through smartphone apps with no subscription, may provide similar or better functionality at a lower lifetime cost. If the tracking device has already been installed, you may negotiate the fee. If it has not been installed, you may decline it. Either way, this is generally a discretionary item. The ninth fee is the advertising fee, sometimes called regional advertising or dealer association fee. This is supposed to cover the cost of advertising the brand in your local market, and the justification is that you benefit from local marketing efforts. The structure of this fee varies. Some manufacturers actually do charge dealers a regional ad fee that gets passed along to buyers, and in those cases the fee may be more difficult to remove. Other times, the fee appears as a dealer-added item with no underlying manufacturer charge, and in those cases, it is negotiable. Ask specifically whether the advertising fee is a manufacturer pass-through or a dealer add-on. If the answer is unclear or evasive, that uncertainty often signals it is a dealer add-on and therefore subject to negotiation. Let me give you a brief picture of how all of this may play out in practice. I will call him Marcus, a hospital nurse in his late 30s, who was buying his first new vehicle after years of driving used cars. The negotiated price on the truck was reasonable, well within his budget, and he felt good about the deal as he sat down to sign. The final paperwork added up to nearly $3,000 more than the price they had discussed. He saw nitrogen tires at $149, paint protection at $899, VIN etch at $299, and a dock fee of $495. He took a breath, looked at the finance manager, and asked one quiet question. Which of these fees are required by law, and which were added by the dealership? The room got still within 20 minutes. 3 of the 4 fees came off the contract. The dock fee, which was capped in his state at a lower amount, was adjusted to the legal maximum. He saved over $1,500 by asking one polite question. Marcus's experience is not a guarantee, and your results will depend on your specific dealer, your state, and the inventory situation at the time. But it illustrates a principle that holds up across many dealerships. The fees are often more flexible than they appear. Before we get to the practical reminders, I want to widen the lens further because the way you walk into a dealership shapes the answer almost as much as the inventory situation or the time of month. A few habits built before you ever cross the showroom floor may shift the entire economics of the deal in your favor. Start with preparation. The most powerful negotiating position is the one assembled in your living room, not at the finance counter. Spend an evening researching the vehicle you want, the trim level, the typical price range in your region, the average dock fee in your state, and any current manufacturer incentives that may apply. Print this information, bring it with you. A beer who arrives with documents tends to be treated differently than a beer who arrives empty-handed. The dealership does not need to know exactly what you have learned. They simply need to sense that you have learned something, and the conversation calibrates accordingly. Get a written out the door price by email or text before you visit. Multiple dealerships, same vehicle, same trim, same options. Ask each one to include every fee and tax in the bottom line, with the line items broken out. Most dealers, especially those competing for online business, will provide this if you ask politely and specifically. When you compare the quotes side by side, the differences will reveal which fees are genuinely fixed and which are variable. A dealer charging $200 more in dock fees than the dealer down the road is telling you those $200 are negotiable. You now have leverage. Time your visit thoughtfully. The end of the month, the end of the quarter, and the end of the model year are traditional moments when dealerships are under more pressure to move inventory and may be more willing to accommodate fee reductions to close a deal. Weekday afternoons tend to be quieter than weekend mornings, and a quieter showroom usually means more attention and more flexibility. This is not a guarantee, but it is a pattern that tilts the odds, and small tilts compound across a several $1,000 transaction. Bring a friend if you can. A second set of eyes on the paperwork is genuinely useful, particularly during the final stage when documents are coming. at you quickly and the conversation tends to speed up. The friend does not need to know cars. They just need to be willing to ask, calmly, what each line item is, while you focus on the bigger picture. This dynamic alone has saved buyers significant money in countless real-world examples. Understand the difference between price negotiation and payment negotiation. A common dealership strategy is to redirect attention from the total price of the vehicle to the monthly payment. This is a meaningful distinction. A lower monthly payment can be achieved by extending the loan term, which often increases the total cost of the vehicle over the life of the loan. Keep the conversation focused on the out-the-door price first, and only discuss financing terms after the price is settled. If the salesperson keeps steering toward payment, gently steer back. The total price is the number that matters. Pre-arrange your financing before you arrive. Get pre-approved through your bank or credit union, know your rate, and bring the approval with you. This does two things. First, it gives you a baseline against which to evaluate any financing offer the dealership makes. Second, it removes a significant source of leverage from the dealership because they cannot use the financing conversation to recoup money they may have lost on the price negotiation. Sometimes the dealership's financing terms will be better than your pre-approval. Sometimes they will be worse. Either way, you are in a position to know. Understand the role of the finance and insurance office. This is the room you enter after agreeing to the vehicle price. It is also the room where many of the fees and add-ons we have discussed get presented for the first time. The finance manager is often compensated, at least in part, on the profitability of the products and add-ons sold during this stage. Recognize this dynamic going in. Every recommendation made in this room may carry an incentive structure for the person making it. That does not mean every recommendation is bad. It means each one deserves the same calm scrutiny you apply to the vehicle price. Decline extended warranties on the spot, at least initially. Extended warranties, sometimes called vehicle service contracts, can be sold for hundreds or thousands of dollars in the finance office, and the prices are typically negotiable. They are also available from third-party providers at lower prices in many cases, and you can purchase one weeks or months after the vehicle sale you decide you want one. The finance office presents the warranty with urgency, suggesting that the price is only available today. In most cases, this is a sales tactic rather than a hard deadline. Politely decline, take the information home, research it, and revisit the decision later if you want to. The same logic applies to gap insurance, key replacement plans, prepaid maintenance packages, and Tyrant wheel protection. Each of these may have value for some buyers. Each is also typically available at better prices outside the dealership. The presentation in the finance office is designed to bundle them quickly with the financing paperwork so the per-month cost feels small. Spread across a 5 or 6 year loan, small monthly numbers add up to significant totals. Run the math. Let me tell you about a couple I will call Patricia and her husband, both in their early 60s, who were buying a midsize SUV for retirement travel. They had negotiated what they believed was a fair price on the vehicle over email, and they arrived feeling confident. In the finance office, they were presented with an extended warranty for nearly $3,000, gap insurance for over $600, paint protection for $900, and a Tyrant wheel package for several hundred more. Each was described as essential, each was bundled into the monthly payment, and the conversation moved quickly. They almost signed. Patricia, on instinct, asked for a printed copy of the proposed contract and said they would think about it overnight. The finance manager became visibly impatient, suggesting the offers might not be available the next day. They left anyway. The next morning, every single offer was still available at the same prices, and they negotiated each one downward significantly before deciding which to accept and which to decline. They saved over $4,000 by walking out for a single night. Their experience is not unique. It is one of the most common patterns in modern auto retail. A note about the trade-in: if you are trading in an old vehicle, get an independent valuation before you arrive. Online appraisal tools plus an in-person quote from a competing beer such as a used car retailer give you a real-world floor for what your trade is worth. Dealerships sometimes use the trade-in valuation as another lever, offering a lower trade value in exchange for a lower sales price or vice versa. Keeping the two transactions mentally separate is the cleanest way to avoid being moved on both. Negotiate the new vehicle price first. Then negotiate the trade-in. Then look at the combined math. One more dimension worth understanding is the difference between dealer-installed accessories and accessories you can add later. Dealer-installed items like all-weather floor mats, cargo organizers, mud flaps, and accessory packages often carry significant markups compared to buying the same items aftermarket. If you want these things, fine, but recognize that the price you pay through the dealership is rarely the best price available. In many cases, the manufacturer's own online parts store sells the identical items at a fraction of the dealer-installed cost, with installation either trivial or available at a local shop for far less. A note about the new FTC CARS rule context. As of recent Federal Trade Commission consumer protection moves, there has been significant discussion about transparency in auto retail, including requirements around disclosing total prices, prohibiting deceptive fees, and requiring clear consent for add-ons. The specifics of how this rule plays out in practice, and whether it is in full effect in your state at the time of your purchase, are worth checking with current consumer protection guidance before you go in. The broader point is that the regulatory environment is moving in a direction that favors informed buyers, and the more you know about your rights, the better positioned you are at the negotiating table. A practical thought on email negotiation versus in-person negotiation. The dealership often has the advantage in person because of the time investment, the emotional momentum, and the structure of the visit. Email and text shift some of that advantage back to you. You can take time to think. You can compare offers across multiple dealers. You can decline without the discomfort of a face-to-face conversation. Many buyers in recent years have negotiated their entire deal by email, arriving only to sign the paperwork. This approach is not universally available, but where it is, it tends to produce better outcomes for the beer. One last frame to carry into the room: every dealership is a business. The salespeople and managers are doing a job, and that job is to maximize the profitability of each transaction. This is not malicious, it is structural. Your job, as the beer, is to maximize the value you receive for the money you spend. These two goals are in tension by design, approaching the negotiation in that spirit with respect for the people involved, but without illusions about whose interests they are serving, tends to produce better outcomes than approaching it as either a fight or a friendship. It is a transaction, treat it as one. A final note about the psychology of the moment. By the time you are in the finance office, you have likely been at the dealership for several hours. You may be tired, you may be hungry, and you have already mentally committed to taking the vehicle home. Every one of these conditions reduces your effective decision-making capacity. The room itself is designed to feel like the end of the process, when in fact it is the most expensive single hour of the entire transaction. If you find yourself starting to lose focus, ask to take a short break. Step outside, make a phone call, eat something. Return to the conversation with a clearer head. The dealership will not refuse this request, and the small disruption may save you significant money. The car shopping process has changed meaningfully in recent years, with more buyers researching online, more transparency tools available, and more aggressive consumer protection scrutiny at the federal level. The fees we have discussed are still common, but the leverage you have to push back on them is greater than it was a decade ago. Use that leverage. The dealerships that adapt to this new reality, becoming more transparent about pricing and more accommodating to informed buyers, are the ones earning loyalty in the current market. The dealerships that hold tight to the old playbook of opaque fees and high-pressure finance offices are the ones losing it. Where you spend your money is itself a form of advocacy, and every beer who pushes back politely on an unwarranted fee is contributing to a market that works better for everyone. Let me also mention what happens after the sale, because the relationship with the dealership does not end the moment you drive off the lot. If you discover after the fact that a fee was charged you did not agree to, or an add-on was applied without your consent, you do have recourse in many jurisdictions. Contact the dealership in writing first, explaining the issue and requesting a refund or credit. If that does not produce a satisfactory response, your state attorney general's office, your state Department of Motor Vehicles, and consumer protection agencies may have complaint processes that can apply pressure. Online reviews and ratings, while not a substitute for formal complaints, also create real reputational consequences that many dealerships take seriously. You are not without leverage after the sale either. A reminder about timing for these post-sale conversations. The sooner you raise an issue, the more likely it is to be resolved smoothly. Issues raised within days of the sale often get handled quickly because the transaction is still fresh in everyone's mind. Issues raised weeks or months later may require more documentation and more persistence. Keep every piece of paperwork from the sale in a single folder, including the original advertised price, any text or email, correspondence with the salesperson, and the final signed contract. These documents are your evidence base if anything needs to be revisited. A few practical reminders before we wrap up. Always ask for a copy of the full out-the-door price in writing before you go in to sign, including every fee broken out as a line item. Compare that document carefully against what you negotiated. If a fee appears that you did not discuss, ask about it specifically. Bring a printed copy of your state's consumer protection guidance on auto sales if you can, because it shows you came prepared. Be polite, be patient, do not raise your voice. The finance manager has heard every argument, and the ones that work are the calm ones. If the fee cannot be removed, ask whether the vehicle price can be reduced by the same amount to offset it. Sometimes the answer is yes, and remember that walking away is always an option. There are many dealers and many vehicles, and the leverage of being willing to leave is the single most powerful tool you have at the negotiating table. Check your state's specific rules, because what is discretionary in one jurisdiction may be regulated in another, and the local details matter. So here we are at the end. 9 fees, each of them worth a closer look, each of them potentially negotiable depending on where you live and how you ask. The dealer prep fee, the dock fee, the market adjustment, the nitrogen tires, the pinstripe and etch package, the pre-installed tint, the paint protection, the tracking device, the advertising fee. Some you may remove entirely. Some you may negotiate down, a few may stay, depending on your state and your dealer. The question worth sitting with is simply this: how many of these fees have you paid in the past without knowing you could have asked?